Yesterday, I watched John Green's excellent video about how America is subsidizing Brazil's cotton industry in order to continue justifying subsidizing America's cotton industry. I did some research and it turns out that cotton is just the beginning. Over the last 18 years, America has spent almost $300 trillion subsidizing its agricultural sector. Last year alone, we paid farmers $15 billion. That's $47 per person, or as much as the entire city of Tampa, Florida earns in a year. The funny thing is, 2/3 of farms in America don't get any subsidies, and the third that do collect money, 10% get 75% of the money that's paid out. The other 90% collect an average of $604 per year. $604. One company in particular received over $500 million between 1995 and 2006 to grow rice, which is what the company was in business to do anyway. In 2002 alone, they got $134 million. There are 4 types of subsidies paid out in America. The first is a conservation program. This is where farmers are paid to grow ground cover, such as grass or trees, instead of a crop. It may seem strange to pay a farmer not to grow food. The idea is that you're providing a habitat for wildlife and you are idling or retiring marginal farms that aren't going to produce very much food anyway. Certainly not economically. The problem is that a large percentage of these idled farms are owned by retired farmers. You don't really have to pay someone who's retired not to work. The second type of conservation, or the second type of subsidy, is disaster aid. This is where the government pays a farmer for a crop that is destroyed by a natural disaster such as a hurricane or a flood. Now, conservation programs and disaster aid programs together only amount to 1/5 of the money paid out by subsidy programs. The problem is that the farmers who get paid disaster aid money are often already getting paid by crop insurance. And speaking of crop insurance, that brings us to the third type of subsidy. This is where the government pays some or all of the premium for the crop insurance. What happens here is that when a crop is destroyed by a flood, the farmer gets money from the government for a disaster aid subsidy, and then he gets money from an insurance company for his crop insurance. A lot of times the crop insurance has also been paid for by the government, so the farmer is getting paid twice for a crop that's destroyed by the same disaster, both of which are funded by the government. Now, the fourth type of subsidy is the biggest, and it amounts to 2/3 of the amount of money that's paid out every year, and this is called commodity subsidies. This is where the government pays a farmer to grow a certain type of crop. They do this in order to ensure a large supply of that certain commodity and also to reduce the cost to buy that commodity. Now, I know we all like cheap food, but I'm not really sure I'm in favor of commodity subsidies either. Almost 2/3 of the money paid out for a commodity goes toward corn, partially because we use it for ethanol, but mainly because it's a very popular ingredient in our food and it's a very common livestock feed. Now, as Americans, I think we eat too much meat and too many carbs, too much white bread and processed food stuff, and way too much high fructose corn syrup. All of these things are based on corn. Or the meat is based on corn in the way that the cattle eat the corn. So by keeping corn prices low, we keep the cost of meat low, we keep the cost of high fructose corn syrup low, and we keep the cost of breads low. Cotton only gets about 1/6 or 1/2 what corn gets. Another third goes toward wheat and rice. which means that about 60% of our farm subsidies pays for grains, which are turned into cereals and breads and cattle feed. I think this, more than anything else, well, maybe not more than anything else, but I think this largely contributes to the epidemic of obesity in America. There's about another 6 that's paid for soybeans, dairy, and peanuts, and 3.7% for everything else that's subsidized. I'm proud to say that honey only gets 0.037% of the money that's paid out in subsidies. Although, now that I think about it, it's a little bit sad that the industry that is collapsing under a mysterious disease is getting the least amount of subsidy from the American government, whereas a crop that exports 46 million tons of products per year is getting the lion's share. In fact, for the last 3 decades, we have exported an average of 46 million tons of corn around the world. Except for last year. We had a bad year. Only 17 million tons got exported. But regardless, we still have much more than we can eat. I think that we should end subsidies because it basically takes money out of taxpayers' pockets and puts it into a small group of farm businesses and landowners. It interferes with the free market economics that our economy is founded on, such as supply and demand. It produces a lot of deadweight losses and bureaucratic inefficiency that just cost us money for no reason at all. It causes overuse of marginal farmland that wouldn't be efficient if we weren't paying farmers to grow stuff on it. And it causes overproduction on the regular farms. It inflates the price of farmland so that farmers who aren't being subsidized have more trouble meeting their overhead. And it creates less efficient planting on the farms that are being paid because they don't have to worry about making that profit because they're getting the profit from the government. And finally, they undercut foreign farmers and non-subsidized U.S. farmers who have trouble competing with farms that are being paid by the government in addition to making money off of their crop. Anyway, feel free to leave comments down below and subscribe if you want to find out just what Joe knows.